It's the season of severe storms, with those storms expected to extend across eastern Australia and a potential Christmas Day tropical cyclone in our north. I've said that it wouldn't happen, but there is the chance of it happening now. A Christmas Day cyclone up in the north of Queensland is possible. It's being supported by some forecast models now. All of that plus more in today's Christmas season forecast update from Force 13 Australia. If you haven't already, please do consider subscribing. It really does help out, and leave a like on the video while you're at it. So we're going to jump over to the national forecast right now. You can see heatwave conditions extending across Western Australia down to about Perth. This is for the next few days. You can see very hot conditions over Port Hedland and the mining communities in far northern Western Australia. It'll be hot in the Northern Territory with rain and storms expected to develop across Kakadu, and that will extend into the Cape York Peninsula. Severe storms and more thunderstorms headlining the case in Queensland and northern New South Wales. Some of those could extend over Brisbane and Sydney. We had a wild night last night, that's for sure, and I'll get to that towards the end of this video. And cool conditions down in Victoria, and they'll extend into Tasmania, where we could be seeing some showers over the coming couple of days. So once again, unfortunately, we have to look at the remnant low of Tropical Cyclone Jasper, because there is a chance now that it actually reforms for good. The forecast for this storm has been incredibly difficult, and it looks like we're going to be thrown another curveball as this cyclone moves over the top of the Cape York Peninsula. It's been designated as Invest 94P, so it's not the same system, but it is Jasper's remnant energy, and it's got winds right now sustained of 35 kilometers an hour and a pressure of 1,004 millibars, so a very weak tropical low, but there is a slim chance that it develops into a tropical cyclone in around a week's time. So we're going to be starting things off on the forecast front with the temperature run from the Access G3 model. You can see Western Australia starts off really hot, 40-degree days, very widespread, which is normal for this time of the year, and these very hot conditions will extend on Christmas Eve into the Northern Territory. Christmas Day is going to be a scorcher across the Northern Territory, up to 45 degrees Celsius in some places, and then across into Queensland this heat's going to extend in there, and you can see the only thing keeping the eastern parts of Queensland and New South Wales cool is the severe storms we're expecting to develop across there. In the south, it's going to be cool. Victoria around average to slightly below average temperatures, and the same for Tasmania with cool nights expected. Some places could dip below freezing, which is rather unusual for December. So we're going to be taking a look at the tropics right now. The eastern relief wind run, you can see as we slow it down here, a tropical low developing across the northern reaches of the Cape York Peninsula. This becomes a tropical cyclone of Category 1 proportions on about Christmas Day, and then as we enter Boxing Day, it starts to turn around. It makes landfall on December the 27th in the far northern extremities of the Cape York Peninsula, very remote, and it will have no impact for Cairns and that sort of area, apart from a couple of showers that we could be expecting, before it races across the Gulf of Carpentaria and heads towards Darwin, where it could significantly intensify there. Now, this isn't the only forecast model expecting this. The GFS and the Access G3 are also on board with this scenario, and the Icon actually has a fairly powerful cyclone developing in the Gulf of Carpentaria. The GFS and the Access are just keeping the system rather weak at this time. So we're taking a look at rainfall for southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales, because that is a pretty serious situation developing right now. We could be seeing totals up to 200 millimeters in the next 5 days for some locations around Roma and Moree. These storms could definitely be severe. They're going to be pulse thunderstorms initially, like they were last night, but they could organise into organised supercell structures and squall structures. This will look at Christmas Day. You can see those severe storms moving into the Brisbane metro, north of Lismore, south of Gympie. So we've been saying it for a while that there's a chance of a Christmas storm situation for Brisbane and for Sydney, and it looks like it's becoming increasingly likely at this time. So I reckon it's going to be a Christmas indoors for Sydney and Brisbane, because there will be severe storms, especially in the afternoon and evening. Now I just want to finish up the forecast part of the video with a look at the satellite imagery of last night's storms. Just look at how photogenic they were. They really blew up dramatically in that big kind of squall line across the trough, and then spread to the Northern Territory and over Mount Isa, and then into New South Wales as well. And these were severe storms. But that's all from now. We're going to go and take a look at windy.com and see what's in store for Australia for the next 10 days. So we're taking a look at the New South Wales situation right now. You can see there are some storms and rain showers moving through the Sydney metro area right now, and they're quite heavy between Sydney and Newcastle actually, so there is a chance of a little bit of flash flooding in some areas. It's definitely going to be a wet start to your Wednesday, so stay safe on the roads through there. And you can see as you get a bit further north, there's some more isolated and more intense pulse thunderstorm activity, but again, this looks like it's going to be easing off by about midday today, and yeah, definitely won't be too much of a storm situation threat anyway. But then behind it, we're definitely going to be seeing these pulse thunderstorms fire up in northern New South Wales and into southern Queensland, and that's where we're going to be concentrating the majority of the focus over the next couple of days here, because some of these storms could definitely be severe and they could definitely pack a punch. And you can see they fire with the sunset. They're firing in the afternoon and evening. So in the afternoon and evening, make sure you're staying up to date with the Bureau of Meteorology, especially if you're in southern Queensland, because that looks like it's going to be the kind of location for these storms over the next couple of days. Make sure you're staying up to date with severe thunderstorm warnings and watches, because there is the chance that a lot of these storms could actually be severe, especially if they organise into squall or supercell structures. And we could be seeing the threat of large hailstones, damaging locally destructive winds and heavy to intense rainfall. Thankfully, they're not going to extend any further north and about Hugh Headed or Mount Isa, and we're not going to be seeing further rainfall up around the Cairns area, which is great news because those areas are saturated. And when I say saturated, I mean record flooding from Cyclone Jasper. There's going to be a whole video dedicated to that coming out about next week around Christmas time, so make sure you are subscribed for that. Now, we're going to be taking a look at the rainfall forecast over the next 5 days, because there is a substantial amount of rainfall forecasted for parts of New South Wales and into Queensland. Now, these green areas are more than 25 millimetres of rain, and the deep blue areas are more than 100 millimetres of rain. So over the next 5 days, there will be locations that pick up around 150 to 160 millimetres of rain inland from the Great Dividing Range in Queensland, and in fact, some places on the Sunshine Coast might actually pick up substantially more, 150 millimetres of rain, and yeah, inland up to 200 millimetres of rain in places. And as we go further south into New South Wales on the Great Dividing Range, we could be seeing totals again about 150 millimetres outside of Newcastle. As you get further south around Sydney, you're probably only looking at about 10 to 15 millimetres of rain. I think over the next 10 days, it jumps up a little bit, to about 30 to 40 millimetres of rain. You can see over the next 10 days, there is a lot of rainfall expected inland from the New South Wales northern coast, around Lismore, Gold Coast, and then down to about Newcastle. There's going to be places that pick up 200 to 300 millimetres, which might push rivers beyond the minor flood level. And in fact, in Queensland as well, up to 300 millimetres. That should definitely get the Murray River flowing once again. So we'll be watching this one very closely, because we could be seeing a little bit of rain from this system, but because it's thunderstorm rain, it's going to be very isolated, and there will be places that pick up a lot of rain and places that miss out entirely. So we're going to have to be watching this one out very closely. Now, the other places that are expecting rain, of course, the tropics. It's that time of the year. It's a northern wet season. Nothing too substantial except for in Kakadu. We could be seeing 200 to 300 millimetres of rain in some locations up there. But the main story is, of course, the Cape York Peninsula. Once again, with the remnants of Cyclone Jasper expected to develop into another tropical cyclone up here. 1,000 millimetres over the Gulf of Carpentaria and over parts of the Cape York Peninsula north of Weipa, around Lockhart River and Thursday Island. We could be seeing some totals up to 400, 500 millimetres in places. And again, because this is going to be tropical rainfall, it could be very isolated, very intense in places, but once the cyclone gets itself going, if it does form, we could be seeing some very widespread heavy rainfall like we did down in Cairns. So speaking of the cyclone, let's take a look at the Eastern Riviera forecast run, because this is the one that's really calling for this system to develop. Now, right now, it's initialized with hardly having a low pressure area. This is maybe the remnants of Jasper. It's been a really poorly forecasted storm, so we're not 100% sure at this time. We're going to take a lot of reanalysis effort to really determine whether this is the remnants or not, but that really doesn't matter. So we're going to be looking at this tropical low here, which is centered in the middle of the Gulf of Carpentaria. And as we play this through, you can see it tries to wrap itself up around Thursday, and as we get into Friday, it's really quite a broad, messy monsoon low at this point. And it's kind of just how every cyclone forms. And it's not until we get till about Sunday, the 24th of December, Christmas Eve, that we start to see this storm really develop and wrap itself up around Thursday Island. Now, it's not a cyclone at this time, but it is about to become a cyclone. We're just waiting for it to get gale force winds. It makes a landfall on the far northern Cape York Peninsula and then moves into the Coral Sea and gets cyclone status actually on Christmas morning. Yeah, about 8 a.m. local time Christmas morning, we're seeing this storm pick up cyclone status. status, with those gales wrapping 3/4 of the way around at the storm center. Now, throughout Christmas, it remains offshore, so it's probably not going to be an impact to locations on the far north Queensland coastline, but then it kind of stalls for a little bit. It really struggles to pick up intensity. It looks a lot stronger than it actually is. Peak winds probably around 30 knots, and in fact, right now, Boxing Day and into the 27th, it's actually a tropical low at this point, making landfall just north of Lockhart River. The only threat that this storm will be is a rainfall one if you were to take this forecast model seriously. And it is the ECMWF, so it is a reliable forecast model, but we're not 100% sure at this time. We're going to have to watch this very closely indeed. Now, as it moves into the Gulf of Carpentaria, it once again picks up some significant intensity there, but because of how small this system is on the forecast models, I'm not sure if this is the forecast model doing a good job at picking up on the system. I don't think it's going to be a tropical cyclone at this point if I was to look at this forecast model, even though it is still a Category 1 as it moves towards Darwin. So headlining, we're not expecting a New Year's tropical cyclone threat for Darwin, and we're not expecting a Christmas tropical cyclone threat for any major population centres, but there is still a chance that far northern Queensland gets a tropical cyclone on Christmas. It is the northern wet season, so we could be seeing absolutely anything happen up there. Now, other forecast models are picking up on this system. The Icon model has a cyclone Christmas Eve in the Coral Sea, and it really does wrap itself up actually quite nicely, and in fact, it's probably stronger than what the Eastern Rift is making it out to be, and this is a more plausible scenario for the storm. Once again, barely a tropical cyclone, nothing to write home about, and it's certainly not going to be bringing flooding rains once again to the Cairns area. And in fact, over the next 5 days, great news, it's going to be completely dry for Cairns as per most forecast models. I mean, it could pick up anywhere between 0 and about 25 millimeters, so nothing significant, that's for sure, which is fantastic news indeed. Now, the GFS forecast model has had something in previous runs, but it's really not picking up on anything in the latest run that it's done, which is good news because once again, we don't want to see any sort of certainty with this tropical cyclone. The less certainty that it has means the less likely that it is going to form. And that's basically it for this tropical cyclone. We're going to get to the graphical Christmas weather forecast just after we take a brief look at temperatures for Christmas Day, because it is going to be a hot one, put it that way. Quite a hot one for Christmas Day as we enter into the morning hours, the afternoon hours actually in the eastern states. We're going to be seeing temperatures soar above 40 degrees Celsius on much of Queensland. And these hot temperatures will extend into the extreme northern parts of New South Wales, but it should remain mild for the majority of the state. Victoria staying cool, same with Tasmania and Adelaide. Parts of South Australia could get fairly hot, but Western Australia is going to be the hot one, with daytime maxima expected to soar above 47 degrees Celsius for some of the mining communities, and in fact they might approach 50 degrees in some places, so a very hot Christmas there. Perth expecting a relatively average top of around 32 degrees Celsius. But let's jump into the graphical weather forecast back in the main video. So I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but quite a lot has changed from yesterday's forecast. We're now looking at quite a lot and quite widespread severe storms across Queensland, and these storms will move into New South Wales and into the Northern Territory as well around Christmas daytime, around 4 p.m. local time through there. Brisbane has a chance of seeing severe storms, same with Sydney and Newcastle. It will be cool and wet actually down in the southern parts of Victoria and also into South Australia, with a cold front expected to brush the state. We could also be seeing some rain showers down in Tasmania as well. Very hot conditions in Western Australia up in the north, and a possible cyclone up in the extreme far northern parts of Queensland. And as we move across to New Zealand, we could also be seeing some rain showers in the northern extremities of the North Island. But here is your Christmas weather forecast from the 20th of December 2023. Take a look at your location and see what weather you could be expecting. But a lot can change, so I'm going to be keeping an eye on this very closely. But that's the latest from us. I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider subscribing and leave a like on the video while you're at it. Tell me how we can improve in the comment section down below, but that's the latest from me, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.
Thank you for watching our content this update. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe to get more updates covering all things weather and geophysics impacting Australia and the Oceania region. Subscribe to our other channels for more content from across the network, and be sure to check out our website where you can find free access to floater and radar imagery and articles on everything weather and much more. If you wish to support us directly, you can purchase some of our merchandise. We have a wide variety of clothing and homeware, or you could become an ultimate fan, which is the best way to directly support us, granting you some sweet perks and offers, including features in our custom storm animations, live streams, and much more.